Alright, my name is Jada Thomas and I'm a sophomore civil engineer student.
I'm Griffin Davis. I'm a sophomore electrical engineering student.
And I'm Dr. Stephen Jones. I'm Associate Dean of Students here in the College of Engineering.
And today we're going to be talking more about the relationship aspects of academics. Some of the exchanges you're going to have with other people while you're at Villanova. So to start, we're actually going to be talking about relationships. How can a student avoid the stress of interacting with a professor?
Well, one of the things that you really want to do that you can do different than, again, high school is actually meet with the instructor and meet with them regularly. Don't just like meet with them the first week and then like 10 weeks later you're meeting with them again. So you have an opportunity, you have them in the class, go introduce yourself, get to know them and what things are important to them, and you'll start developing a relationship just by having that conversation.
Yes, and I think that also knowing how to approach a professor alleviates some of the stress from meeting with them, because even with emails, you're supposed to email a professor a certain way. So just knowing how to speak to a professor, I think, gives less stress than just not knowing. Even knowing how they would like to be approached, what they would like to be called, so stuff like that will help to alleviate some stress.
And you can get that cue from the classes if you're in the class, and how the instructor introduces themselves, whether they introduce themselves by their first name or they actually say Dr. Jones. So then that's giving you a cue in terms of how they want to interact. And I would say you also develop that relationship by, again, having questions ready when you go in the session, so they feel as though you're really prepared to have an interaction with them and share with them any concerns that you might have, because sometimes they know resources that could help you even beyond the meeting that you're having with them.
Okay, regarding relationships, what are some good tips for students who are dating and in college?
Wow. Well, I'll say this, your education is your first priority, so you should really make sure that that is your focus, and that there's time for hanging out and dating, but also making sure that your education is a priority for both of you. Just a little research that they've found that 90% of the students that are dating each other in the first year are not dating each other by the last year. And I've seen students get really stressed out about the person that they were dating, because you're on the same campus. Unless it's like a real big campus, you're going to see each other, right? But then it's how you respond to each other and how you treat each other as a result of that. Because you did have a relationship, you were at some point friends. So I think it's important to keep things at that level. And so now I can talk from like 30 some years of marriage. It is our friendship that helps us to have a good marriage. And so in any relationship, it's that friendship, the ability to speak the truth of what you feel about the person. And it's also how you speak that truth at the same time. There's a difference between aggressiveness and assertiveness, like just communicating that with them with concern for them as opposed to an aggressive approach. So going back to the main question is, you are here to get your degree, and make sure that you're focused on that, but enjoying the relationships as well.
Yeah, I do have a girlfriend actually, and I am a college student. She doesn't go here though, she goes to Drexel, but I just thought I could testify that finding that balance between work and the relationship is really important, because obviously you want to spend time with each other, and it's very easy to get bogged up with that and then not focus on other things. Make sure you focus on yourself, focus on your friends, focus on your academics, and as long as you stay friends like you were saying, everything else always seems to work itself out. But now we're going to be moving on to group work. So how do I overcome the stress of feeling I'm the only student who wants to complete the project early?
Right, and you're doing it as a group.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that every group needs to have an assignment for each of the people that are in the group. Sometimes students get confused about what their component of it is to do. And I also say, well, this is the part of it that you're going to do, and have a discussion about what that's going to be or what it should look like. Because sometimes when the person comes back to the group, you're like, well, I thought you were doing that. And it looks totally different from what you talked about. So I think you need to have a full discussion about that. And also, you need to have an buzz person. What is that? That's a person that manages the meetings. You assign one person in the meeting to say we're off target. Let's get back to what we're supposed to do for this meeting. I think a lot of times if you don't do that, then it turns into kind of more of a social conversation and not getting the things done that you're supposed to do in that time. You might want to leave time at the end for social conversation, but at the very beginning and organizing the meeting, you want to say we're going to get this done as a group, as this session is done.
So what are some things that a group can do to get off with a good start?
Have an actual schedule. You can actually map it out for the entire semester. What are all the dates and times that you're going to meet, so no one's confused about that. Because I've seen that too, where students thought that you had a meeting this week, but no one's ever put it on paper, and it just becomes a moving target. So if you have a specific time and date, then you know that that's what you're going to do, unless something happens and you agree that we're going to move it to another date and time, and that can work out as well. But agreement is important when you're working in a group.
Yes, I agree. Like, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, so there's never any confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, and you were talking about scheduling in the other video, and I think some professors do make you implement your own schedule into the project, but even when they don't, like, having that schedule at the start really makes the difference in how productive you are throughout the rest of the project period. But now we're going to be looking at internship decisions. So how do I overcome the bad feeling that I did not get hired for an internship?
So when you're going after a company and you're doing all the research and you're identifying the one that you think you fit in, sometimes your personal fit may not fit what they want. I'd rather have a company reject me and say, you're not the person that we want, but get hired by the company that says, yes, I want you because you fit in. I don't want to be the second choice. I want to be the first choice of someone that you wanted to do the internship with me. So the rejection is just kind of feedback on whether you match what they need, and don't allow it to be like a negative. Keep applying, because it's that student that keeps applying that eventually gets an internship opportunity. And career centers, I will say this, career centers go unused. Like, there are a lot of students that they go to the career fair, they never see the career center again. So go to the career center throughout the whole year to find out who's coming through. The alumni are coming through there, are looking for interns. Companies are calling, they're sending announcements about, but if you're still busy doing your work on this engineering side, you won't see the opportunities that are available to you. And the cool thing today is that you have Skype. So a lot of the companies are now, you don't have to fly out to the company. They will Skype you and interview you online and then decide whether they want to bring you out. So that means you probably could do several interviews during a given week because you don't have to actually fly out there and lose time in class. So I think this is a better world out there for opportunities.
With those online interviews and the Career Center going unused, a lot of people don't realize that you can book interview rooms there. And so then you can have a nice interview room as your backdrop when you're doing that Skype call, rather than your college dorm with all your flags and everything on the wall. Yeah, Career Center is definitely an invaluable resource.
Yes, it really is. Even with helping with your resume, because a lot of people don't know the proper format for a resume, and they help with that as well. They help with everything basically. So.
They do.
Yes. How do I get excited about applying for another internship when my last internship was not what I expected?
Okay. So talk about feedback.
Yes.
So you were getting feedback from the managers that worked in that company, but you're also for yourself identifying the things that you want to do through the internship. So you thought that you wanted to do a certain kind of civil engineering, aspect of civil engineering going in, but then you found out in the real world, it's totally different than what you're experiencing in classes. So then you can identify that as something that you don't want to do, and in the next internship, go after what you think you really want to do. So it's not, so you still learn something from it, and now you're moving on to find the exact thing that you want to do.
Yeah, and like with relationships, There's a million fish in the sea, so not one's going to be the same.
Yeah.
So definitely don't get discouraged for that reason. But once you do get that internship, now we're looking at job decisions. How do I overcome the stress of going on job interviews during the senior year?
So there are a combination of ways we talked about the interview. Sometimes they will come to your campus and interview you. Sometimes you'll go to them. Sometimes you may have to do, like again, the Skype actual interview. And I always say, have a spreadsheet of the companies that you're going to meet with, kind of prioritize what you want to do, because you may have to decide, I just don't want to go on that interview because that company really doesn't match with what I want. But I think if you're putting it on paper, you can see, and so maybe one of the interviews that would have taken up half of your week, now you're not going because it's just not a priority for you. So I guess everything that looks good may not be good for you, but you have to prioritize. Your main goal at that point is to make sure that you graduate. We want to get to a situation where the projects that we're doing, or you had senior project, and you just didn't get done because half the semester you're traveling all over the country trying to do the interview. So we do want to make that happen. And all the things that you're doing in the sophomore, junior years are also leading up to that opportunity for employment at the end. So that there are companies that they will give you your first offer because you've done 2 internships with them in your sophomore and junior year. They'll give you your first job offer. And then you can decide from there. Some companies will, based on the amount of time that you spent with them, give you a salary that's higher because you spent 3 summers with them or 2 summers with them. So now you've been with them basically 9 months. And so they'll give you a higher salary to come with them. Because really, look at it. They've seen you, they see your skill sets, and they've invested in you over those 3 summers. They would love to have you come and work for them. So that's something to think about. And the other thing is that companies will give you a window of time, and you should ask for a window of time to make your decision. So if you think that you might want to interview with a few other companies, you'll have that time without the pressure.
Okay, so what do you think is the best way to handle the stress from being rejected by a company?
Okay. I think the best way to handle it is to just figure out what your next steps are. Don't allow it to be a block from you continuing to apply. Think about maybe going back to the Career Center and saying, let's do maybe your interview didn't go that well. So now you go back to Career Center and say, can I meet with someone that can help me to do a better job interview? Because I didn't know how to respond. I was so nervous. And so now you got more feedback on how to give a better response. And maybe that first time you were too nervous. Yeah. And so you get better as you go along.
Yeah, those practice interviews definitely break the ice. And I've done some interviews now, and a lot of the time you think you know what they're going to ask, and then almost every time there's a curveball. There's something you're not expecting. So that practice, I think, is extremely important. But now we're focusing on activities on campus. So how can I manage my stress of participating in a lot of activities that occur on campus?
Okay. I guess the best way is not to get into too many activities. Like, remember back in high school when you were involved in 10 different things and you still got your work done and you had fun. Well, you can't, to be successful in college, I don't think that you can do that many activities. I think you should do a few because that gives you relationships with other students around the college, and you can have, again, college is supposed to be fun as well. So you have time to enjoy yourself, but set some limits on what you can do. Maybe you do 2 this year and you decided next year to do something different. So you still have 4 years to try other kinds of things. But you're not majoring in the extracurricular activities. You're majoring in the major that you selected.
Okay. And secondly, can participating in extracurricular activities be another way to reduce stress?
Absolutely. So get your mind off of the test or the quiz or the relationship. There's a problem with the relationship. It can reduce that stress as well. And now going back to relationship though, if you're having problems in a relationship, that can affect your ability to concentrate, right? So you might need some counseling just to get through that period of time where the relationship is a little stressed, and that's not a bad thing. And we, in all the universities, especially here at Villanova, have counseling center for all kinds of issues that affect you on the outside of classroom, but also do affect the inside of the classroom. And so I think it's important to take advantage of that.
Okay, yes, I really agree that the extracurricular activities really reduce stress, because the main stressor in most students' life is academics. So taking your mind off of it, doing some time of the day is really helpful. So I agree.
A lot of activities, especially for freshmen or freshman guys, it can be hard to get off campus. And so looking at extracurriculars just to get off campus and see some new environments also can be a very good way to do that. And also, if I ever do have problems with my relationship, I'm just going to come straight to you, not the counseling center, and your 30 years of marriage expertise.
A little bit of answers from that. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jones.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you all of you for listening, as Professor Falcone would probably be saying if he was here.
Yes.